That was my goal, is to be the mom, raise the children, stay in the home. I'd never really thought about a career. I just felt guilty that I am not the perfect wife. I'm not home. I'm putting my dance career in front of my marriage. It just felt awkward. And so I quit.
Did you feel pressure to get married?
No, I felt like I was an old maid.
Well, that means you felt pressure.
Okay, pressure. We need to do more family prayer. We need to read our scriptures at night. You need to wake up in the morning and read your scriptures. You need to go to all your church meetings, because if you do, then you're going to be happier. Everything is based on the church. To me, that fear of heaven and hell. If I was in the temple, I had fire insurance. That was my fire insurance.
You went to the Mormon temple because you felt like that was the way you would definitely get to heaven.
Yes, because
that's what they told you.
Yes, because I had such a fear of death. That's a horrible feeling, to fear death.
Now that I've been out for over a decade, and now I am raising my own kids, people will now look to me as the non-religious one and probably be like, well, why aren't you teaching your child about Jesus? And we've already had people in our lives who are more religious try and persuade us to raise our children, quote, right, than being a good person for the sake of either gaining an eternal reward or for fear of eternal damnation.
It makes my stomach churn now to think that that's what was being instilled on me, and I was instilling that on you as it's heaven or hell.
Mine is the only voice.
Wow. What have I been doing?
Lay down my autonomy.
After that, it got very dark very quickly.
Hey, my name is Shelise Ansola, and this is Cults to Consciousness, where we discuss leaving high-demand religions or organizations and finding healing and independence through awareness and true individual sovereignty. If you're only listening, you're going to want to go to YouTube to see our faces, both in studio today, first time ever in the new studio. And we, of course, love it when you can like, subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss any episodes. Join in on the conversation. It boosts the algorithm. It makes our guests feel seen and supported, and today's guest is very special, so go comment. Thanks for joining us, Mom.
Hey.
So we've had Mom on before, and you guys always love her interviews. I think the last time we did a live maybe a year ago, but before that, it's been like 2 years since we did your initial interviews.
Yeah.
So Mom came to visit and see the baby, and we're like, let's do a special Mother's Day episode and just have a conversation about what it's like raising children in a high control group. In our case, it was Mormonism. And we've talked a little bit about this in your interview, but it was so long ago. So we'll probably touch on a few things we've touched on in the past, but also expand on the expectations growing up as a young girl in the LDS Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We will be referring to it as Mormon because it's easier, or LDS. And for reference, if you have not seen my mom's interviews, she is no longer LDS. You left around the time I did, like 12 years ago.
At least.
Yeah, it's been a while. So we're going to talk about her experience raising children in a high control group. And then we're going to talk about my experience raising children or child outside of a high control group and the pressures that come with that as well. And just some of the differences, comparing and contrasting. And so I guess it's a good time to mention this is also a special episode because we will be raising children here soon because your girl's pregnant. Baby surprised us months earlier than we were getting ready to try for another one, but that's okay. So I'm about 3 months along, due in December. So yeah, obviously childbirth and pregnancy is on my mind. Yay. So, all right, let's get into it. So let's talk about your childhood growing up. What are some things that you can remember from the early days in Young Women's, which for those who aren't familiar with Mormonism, you go to it when you're 12, it's part of church, and then you have separate activities outside of church on Wednesdays usually. It's called Mutual. And in my experience, you basically just learn how to be a good wife and mom, but I'm curious from your perspective what you remember from those lessons.
That was pretty much It was pretty much the same thing that when I was younger, all of my friends, we were all Mormon. So that's who we hung out with. And so we would go to all the activities during the week and on Sundays. When we'd go on the weekday activities, everything was kind of centered around how we can be a better mom and the things that we need to prepare for to be a mom,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously, when we were at that age, 12, 13, 14, you were told how to dress because you wanted to be modest and in order to find the perfect husband. So it was geared more to what we need to do as a young woman to be the perfect mom, because that was the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Your whole goal was to be a mom.
Yeah.
And which I love.
And that's what I wanted to pause and talk about, because we're not saying that you should not be a good mom and that's horrible that they tell you how to be a good mom. The point is that was the only option that you were given. It wasn't, oh, if you want to try to do a career first and then have a family. It was very much, no, your job is to, as early as 12, we're teaching girls, let's start thinking about your husband. Did you have activities like we did where they had you write out things you wanted in a husband starting at 12 years old? And it was always returned missionary, temple
Always.
worthy, priesthood
Yes.
holder.
Exactly. And if you, like what happened in my case, and we'll talk about that later, but you were told to marry a returned missionary. You were told that is your goal, is to be the perfect mom. And again, we weren't taught about careers and to do other things. You were the one in the home. You were the one to raise the children. The husband is to go to work, and that's your goal. And so it was a little bit different in my situation growing up, because we were kind of going against the norm, because in my growing up days, my mom was the one that worked. She was in the outside world. And a lot of people I remember saying, how come your mom's always at work? How come, why isn't your mom home? Why is your dad the one cooking dinner? Why is he home? Nowadays, it wouldn't be a big thing. If the dad wants to stay home, that would be accepted and it'd be great. And the mom could go work if she wanted to, or vice versa. But in my situation, I remember thinking that, God, it's my mom that's at work and my dad is home more than she was. But I knew that living the church, that was my goal, is to be the mom, raise the children, stay in the home. I'd never really thought about a career at that age until I hit college. And then I started thinking, why can't I do something else? Why can't I get a career?
Well, because you went to college for child development, didn't you? So you're even getting a degree in momming.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. Yeah, that's true. But I had so many other things I wanted to do, but I felt I shouldn't do them.
Like what?
Well, my one goal was I wanted to be a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. I wanted to do that. Well, I danced in college, as that's what paid for my college. My scholarship was through dancing. And so by doing that, I thought I wanted to continue on. But then I met my future husband, and ended up thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I should just get married. And that was the direction I went.
And you were only 18 when you met him, right?
Yeah, 18, and then got married at 19. And then had my first child at 21. But it took me about a year to get pregnant. But I was a stay-at-home. I was there to be the mom, take care of the household, clean, do everything for my husband, and he was the provider. So
I think going back to my childhood, thinking back to young women's activities, it is kind of annoying that they didn't teach you skills outside of the home, any young women's activities. So like the boys were learning all these cool tricks and things to do camping and just, I don't know, life world skills. And we were learning how to set the table. It felt like
we did camping a few times.
Well, girls camp.
We were taught to cook over a fire.
We were taught to make the food for everybody else, which
was
again,
cool.
Those are great skills.
Those
are great skills. But just if I'm thinking back to girls camp, it's like all of the lessons. We went window shopping for wedding dresses when I was 13 years old.
The etiquette of how to set the table. Yeah, that's true.
And if you look at the personal progress books, these books that they give once you become a young woman at 12, they give you these books and you get them signed off. And so the things would be like, go make a recipe with your grandma and have her sign off that you now know how to make cookies.
Babysit for so many hours to get that signed off.
Yeah.
You had to do all those different things, and I
And
did.
come to think of it, that was my first job, was babysitting.
Babysitting. That was mine. I babysat at 12.
Yeah.
A lot of kids, 3 kids, at 25 cents an hour. And I bathed them. I made their dinner. I cleaned up after them. That was my goal. And I remember sometimes thinking, I want to go out and play. I want to go out and ride my bike. And yet I never could say no because I felt like I should always say yes to somebody that asked me to do something. And so I did. And I enjoyed it at times. Sometimes I regretted it. I wanted to just be a kid. But that's how I earned money.
Any specific lessons that you can remember, or just overall general feelings that you remember from your past about that being your only option?
The things that I remember, we had a really good teacher that was during the weeknight, and she would do object lessons with so many different things. So by her doing little objects with like little pill bottles with M&Ms, and that meant something to do with what the lesson was pertaining to. And I don't recall exactly one, but they always made us feel like, oh, we could be so much better, and we can do so much better as a mom and as a girlfriend or a wife and mother. We have to be a certain way. So, I mean, I always strive to be that. Which I obviously want you to be a good mom, and you are. And so that was our goal. But I always felt like that was that was our purpose in life: multiply and replenish. That was it.
Yeah, that was a commandment of God,
yeah.
multiply and replenish the earth.
Yeah, and so I felt like I had to have, and I didn't want a lot of kids. I mean, I knew people that had a lot of kids, and I always used to feel like, well, are they going to get lost in the middle of it? Or, and many of them aren't. I mean, people that have a lot of children do a great job at raising children, and with many of them, but I felt like, could I give that attention to that many kids? So I would feel guilty thinking, oh man, I don't really want to have that many kids, but I'm supposed to, I should. And, as time went on, when I got on birth control, I felt guilty, really guilty for being on birth control.
Yeah, so let's talk about what it was like when you're growing up and you're coming of age, of like Mormon age to get married, and you are at a crossroads of, I'm in college, do I want to get a degree, have a career, like ambitions that you wanted, versus going to, well, I really should just get married. So that time in your life, kind of paint us a picture of what it was like.
Well, for me, when I went to college, my goal was to get a degree in psychology. So I wanted to do that, but yet you're supposed to find your husband too. And when I did meet the man that I wanted to marry, I still wanted to do my schooling, but I still wanted to dance. But you can't be married and be on the dance team.
That was a rule?
Oh yeah, at that time, you could not be married and be on the dance team. But
you had to be single to be on the dance team.
But okay, I get it. Well, okay, this makes sense, because me being on the team, my focus, you're out there dancing in front of people, men especially, and you're dancing, and it almost felt, as a Mormon, if I'm out there dancing,
what, sexy?
I felt guilty
for dancing sexy
if I would have been married, because my husband would be in the audience watching that. So let's step back a little bit. I had told my advisor, I'm thinking about getting married. And she's like, whoa, no. If you get married, you can't be on the dance team. And I said.
And you had a scholarship.
And I'm on a scholarship. Yeah. Which then I wouldn't have been able to afford the college. And I said, why can't I be married? And she said, I don't know. And so she looked into it, and they changed the rule. They changed the rule that you could be married and be on the dance team. And I was just like, yes, I can be married. So then we're traveling and on the dance team, and you're married and you're doing all these things. And I just felt guilty that I am not the perfect wife. I'm not home. I'm putting my dance career in front of my marriage. It just felt awkward. And so I quit. After my third year, I quit. And it was, I felt like I guess I'm doing the right thing, even though it was killing me because I wanted to dance. But
Well, you wanted to be a Dallas Cowboys
I
cheerleader.
did. But I got married instead. I chose to get married instead of going
So,
on.
did you feel pressure to get married?
No, I felt like I was an old maid.
Well, that means you felt pressure to
Okay,
get
pressure.
married.
Okay, first of all my friends, not all of them, but the ones that were of the same age, they were all married in the temple. And I felt like, what's wrong with me? I should be married. I should be married. I should be married.
And you were 19.
19. I felt like I should get married, that I was going to be an old maid if I didn't get married. And I look at that now and I think, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. Oh, yeah, just crazy. But so I felt like that was the thing to do.
So, we always have to talk about, is this Mormon influence? Is it social, cultural influence? Was it all of the above? So, what's your opinion? Do you think there was a lot of Mormon influence in that?
Of course there was, because all my friends were pretty much Mormon. I mean, that was what it was at that time. When I got into college, some of my friends were not Mormon, so I have to understand that. But the ones that I was closest to, that I felt like were getting married in the temple, the ones that were in the church that were getting married, that's the ones when I felt that it took me back to that childhood of, that was the goal, is to be married.
So that's
have
kind of how
children.
you know, right? If the friends you have in college are not married, and the friends you have in college who are not Mormon are not married, and the friends you have who are Mormon are married, that's kind of the difference.
Yeah,
You can tell, well, it's
it
because
was,
you're Mormon.
because I had friends that weren't, and great friends that weren't LDS, and they weren't getting married. And some of them did get married early. Maybe it was a Utah thing. I don't know.
Well, that's what I wonder, if it's like a social thing.
Yeah, I think it's both.
I do think that there's a lot to be said about Utah Mormons as a whole, because when you go to other states, they act differently. And state to state is different, because we do have people commenting saying, I grew up Mormon in this other state and the pressures weren't there, or it was different. But I do think that that also kind of solidifies the fact that the religion really inflicts its own opinions on the people within the culture, because the culture in Utah is Mormon. So it's not like, well, it's just a Utah thing. The reason it's a Utah thing is because of the Mormon population. And so you have to see the correlation there of, well, yeah, the reason it's a Utah cultural thing is because everyone's Mormon and everyone follows the social standard.
And it's interesting that you say that, because I had somebody come up to me not too long ago that said, I recognize you. And I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know how. And they had been watching your podcast. And she said she grew up in Utah, not as a Mormon, but she was so influenced in a negative way. She was ostracized. Her friends were not able to be her friends because she was not Mormon. She had a lot. And I haven't gone into it with her to really, because she's like, we've got to sit down and talk. But she really had a hard time growing up, being around those kids and being raised but she wasn't Mormon.
Well, especially in Utah, it feels like a cool kids club. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you're not Mormon. And you kind of feel
Yeah.
bad for them immediately. It's like this righteous pity that you have
Yeah.
on people. And so you're feeling the pressure of, well, all of my friends, my cool kids, they're all married, so I better get to it. Do you feel like if you didn't have that pressure, you would have chosen the man that you married? Do you think you would have married him anyway?
I don't think we would have married that soon.
That soon.
Yeah, we would have taken our time and really
Yeah.
made sure,
Yeah.
and
Because he wasn't Mormon, so you were already rebelling against getting a returned missionary.
But again, he was going to become Mormon.
He promised you that he
said
would.
he would.
Because he knew that that was your expectation.
Yes. And that's when because I went to my bishop and he had said, you should not get married to this man. He's not Mormon. And I said, but I love him. And he goes, well, he's not Mormon. And so I went back and told, my fiance at the time, I guess, that I can't marry you because you're not Mormon. He said, well, okay, I'll get baptized. And it kind of threw me, and I was like, no, that's not how we do it. No, that's not how I do it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put that pressure on him.
You wanted him to want to be Mormon.
Yeah. And so I went against the bishop and got married. Would we have gotten married down the road later? Maybe we would have. Maybe we needed just time to really get to know each other, to make sure that because he's a great man. So maybe we just needed more time to really make sure. And I don't know, I ended up getting divorced, 7 years later. But I have 2 wonderful sons. So
Yeah. Hey guys, we're going to get back to our interview here in just a second, but I wanted to take a quick moment to talk about the sponsor for today's video, Incogni. Spam calls are obviously the worst. We hate them. Everyone hates them. But it's so much scarier than that. As YouTubers, we're really putting ourselves out there. And yes, we value our online security, but we had no idea how unprotected we were and how these companies were unethically selling our data to other data brokers and people search sites until we joined Incogni. Within 5 minutes, it showed me 536 requests sent to very specific companies to remove my data from their database. We're talking emails, phone numbers, addresses, even social security and income information, things that were sold to these companies without my consent. I didn't have to call anyone, email anyone, they do everything for me, and they continuously monitor, so if my information gets back out there, it is taken down indefinitely. You can cancel anytime, and they also have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you're like us, if you value your security, your online security, your privacy, and you don't want to fall victim to identity theft, now is the perfect time to try Incogni risk-free. Right now, they are actually offering our supporters, our listeners, a 60% off their annual plan discount. So you just have to go to incogni.com/Shelise. The coupon code Shelise should automatically populate for you, but to make it super easy, we put everything in the description. Just click the link, it'll take you right there. Back to our video. I think that's the tricky thing about pressuring young kids to get married. And also, I want to hear your opinion if part of it was because you just weren't allowed to have sex. Because a lot of Mormons get married young because they're like, well, we can't touch each other until we're married. Let's just get the job done. And honestly, sometimes a couple months after meeting each other, they're like, okay, let's just get it done. So I feel like there's a lot of harm in that. And that's coupled also with purity culture, which sort of is a separate conversation. But with all these pressures on these young kids, they're still trying to figure out who they are. They're trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives. And that's not to say that you can't have an amazing relationship if you get married young, because of course, plenty of people do it. But it's the fact of being manipulated or coerced, or you feel like you don't really have a choice and you just have to get married because that's what's expected of you. That's where there can be an issue, because you may have chosen a different path if you didn't feel that pressure.
absolutely. And I always remember, with my siblings and stuff, I remember when missionaries would come home, they were told, you find a wife 3 months,
Really?
because they knew that the sexual desire of a man, it's there. And if they didn't get married, they were going to have sex, and then they couldn't get married in the temple.
Yeah. And then it's shame upon your family and you.
Yes. So the pressure was there to find someone to marry in 3 months. How do you find someone in 3 months?
Well, people do it
They do.
because they feel like they have to.
Yeah. And they do it. And then a lot of times it doesn't work out. I'm not saying it doesn't work out, because many people it does, but I've known a lot of people that it hasn't, because I think they rush too fast. Not saying that they may not have gotten married 2 years down the road, but if they would have been allowed to have sex, and I'm not advocating it or anything like that, or saying, I'm not saying, I'm just saying
It's choice.
it's choice.
Yeah.
that
You want people to
maybe,
have choice.
yeah, because what if,
What if you're not sexually compatible?
exactly. And that was what I was going to say.
That's a
Yeah.
thing. And also that's a thing. And this plays into being a mother or a wife in a high control group, is you're not really taught that you have options even within your sex life. So if you don't have the opportunity, and you may choose to be a virgin until you're married, and if that's your choice, great. But if you wanted an opportunity to understand your sexuality more and to test drive, and you weren't able to, a lot of women don't realize that sex should be pleasurable because they've only been with one person and they haven't had the education, or they felt too taboo to ask any questions. They can't go to their parents for questions. They don't talk to their friends because that's, again, like, we don't talk about that. They don't know that it can be a pleasurable experience, or they don't know how to have a pleasurable experience.
Or the man is supposed to lead the way,
Uh-huh.
and you're just supposed to follow.
Yeah.
Whatever the man wants to, you do, whether it's pleasurable or not,
Mhm.
because you're just kind of, he's the one in control. And if he doesn't have education about sex,
Mhm.
then you're obviously not going to have that enjoyment either.
Is that something that you grew up with? Is the idea that you were just there to please a man in any capacity?
Oh
Like
yeah, I
emotionally or
never
spiritually?
talked about sex with anyone. Even my mom, we didn't talk about that.
Mhm.
It was 5th and 6th grade when we learned about how babies are born. That was it. The sex education course, which is so nothing. I mean,
Mhm.
so that's all I knew. I mean, that was it.
Yeah. So when you became a wife and you were expected to do this thing, you figured it out. But was it like you you felt like you had to just please the man and you didn't have any say in it? Like I'm trying to understand the mentality behind growing up as a Mormon girl. Usually it's, well, the men hold the priesthood, the men are above you, the men are the authority. You submit to their authority and you kind of do what they say, especially strict gender roles, which we'll get to. But I guess I'm wondering if you had that same mentality of, well, I just kind of have to do what he says.
I just did what he did. I just followed along.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that he didn't try, to be pleasure or make, pleasure for me. It's just I felt it wasn't really exciting because we didn't communicate about it. And maybe it's because we were both so young.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was better for him down the road and it was for me down the road. But because then you kind of educate yourself more of, then you start talking to people and going, well, what have I missed? Or
When did you start talking to people about sex? Was it after you left the church?
no, no,
You
no.
actually did have conversations as a Mormon?
Well, yeah, but I had kind of slithered away from the church for a while before my second marriage. And then, I
Wait,
was,
I didn't know this. You were not a Mormon for a
no, I was
for
a
a hot
Mormon.
second?
Oh yeah. Well, when I met your dad,
Yeah.
I was not really living the church at that time. Okay,
Oh.
I was a Mormon and this is how I justified it. People would say, "Where are you from, Utah? Are you a Mormon?" Yes, but I'm not a very good Mormon, so don't hold that against me. Don't, use me as an example because I'm not a good Mormon.
Or Jack Mormon?
Yeah. And then I wanted to get back in the church
Uh-huh.
more. And because when I was married to my first husband towards the end, we really weren't going to church and I wanted that in my life because I felt like that's what's missing. That's what's missing. It wasn't that was missing. When I was married on my first marriage, we weren't living the religion
Yeah.
because he wasn't.
He was never really invested. He was just doing it for you.
No. And so when we got divorced, then I started to go,
Do you know they have whole talks and articles in BYU about how to go back to celibacy after you've been married? Because there are so many young adults who get divorced and now they have to go back to not having sex. And
oh,
so it's like,
wow.
this is how you go
Oh,
back to
my.
celibacy instead of sleeping around, with other people. I mean, that's a hard position to be in. If you already know what it's like to be sexually liberated in some capacity and have that loving experience with a partner, and then you have to go back to cold turkey until you get married again. So you didn't do that?
No. Yeah.
Did you feel bad about that? Did you feel guilty about that?
Oh, definitely.
Did you repent to your bishop as a grown woman with kids?
No, not at that time, no.
You were like, no, he
not
doesn't
at
need to
that
know
time,
his
no.
business.
That's when I felt like, no. When I got back in the church and was living the church, and I lived it for many years when my children were young. You were young, well, when you came along, and then, yeah.
So you felt like maybe it was because of your sinning that your life wasn't going the way you wanted, and so you're like, well, clearly I'm doing something wrong.
If
I
I'm
gotta get
living
back
the
there.
gospel, then that will bring joy back into my life.
Okay. Well, that's something that we want to talk about, which is this idea that if you're happy, then you're worthy.
No, if you're worthy, I always say if I'm worthy, then I'll be happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like if you're not happy in your life, it's because you
you're
think
not
you're
worthy.
unworthy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's something that I wanted to talk about as a parent, because obviously parenting comes with so many ups and downs, like even just mood swings, right? I'm experiencing now, I think I've cried spontaneously since I've had a child maybe 4 times, where I just burst into tears. I'm like, life is hard. And I've never, ever, ever done that before parenting. And I think it's just the hormones of pregnancy and then postpartum, and you're up and you're down and you're like, why is it so hard? And so I haven't had the extra layer of, well, it's probably because I'm not reading my scriptures that I feel horrible, but you have. So what was that like when you're having these just truly, honestly difficult experiences as a parent and you're thinking it's because you're not worthy or you're not living the gospel right?
Yeah, I felt like we need to do more family prayer. We need to read our scriptures at night. We need to read our scriptures alone. You need to wake up in the morning and read your scriptures. You need to go to all your church meetings, because if you do, then you're going to be happier. Everything is based on the church, instead of just looking at life and going, why am I not happy? Or what's going on in my life? Maybe just there's ups and downs in life in general, but I related it to, it's because I'm not.
You're not a good enough Mormon.
I'm not.
Well, and that's something you've dealt with your whole life too, right? Like
Oh,
even
yeah.
just saying that break between husbands, you thought that things weren't going well because you weren't Mormon enough.
So I had to be Mormon again. Well, and even growing up, the guilt I felt when I just didn't want to go to church, I remember just saying, I don't want to go to church today. I'd pretend like I was still asleep. And I think, please let us just sleep in. Please don't let anybody wake up. I don't want, everybody's silent. Maybe we'll miss church. And then my sister would come in and say, come on, let's go to church. And I go, I don't know. Are mom and dad going? And they might say, well, no, we're not going today. But you go, you have to go. And I felt that guilt that I had to go, and I didn't want to go. And so that carries over into the guilt that I had as a parent.
Because now you're responsible for your children's souls.
Yeah. And I felt, though, guilty. Now I feel guilty that I forced my children to go to church.
Pause, because I want to get to that later.
Okay.
Talk more about the stuff that was hard for you. And I imagine a lot of the times that I have my breakdowns, it's because there's so much going on. There's just so much pressure. There's so much to do. You can't get anything done. I'm a full-time caregiver and I'm doing the channel full-time. And it's like passing the baton to Jonathan, like, you take the baby, I'll do the thing. Now it's just like work baton. And so I feel like the times where I'm happiest is when I can just take a breath. And for you, it seems like you added more to your plate in order to try and be happy, which I think would make the problem worse.
Yeah, I felt like as a mom, if I'm serving the Lord, putting him first, then everything else will fall into place. So I felt like I had to be the perfect mom, be the perfect housekeeper. Oh, I had to keep my house spotless. So what does that look like?
What is being perfect to you in definition?
For me, waking up every morning, making sure you kids had breakfast, and I'd rotate, pancakes one day, then French toast another, then eggs another, and then cereal on Fridays.
I got the benefits of you trying to be a perfect mom.
Yeah, I always felt like I had to just do everything perfect and then get you kids off to school, make sure you were all looking great. Your clothes were then washed. The house was spotless. And you have those breakdowns. I had my breakdowns were on the steps leading down the stairs when I'm cleaning and overwhelmed with laundry and the business, trying to run the business, and I would sit down and on the stairs and just bawl and have a good cry session. And then I had a picture of the matches that were lined up, and the one tilted over and it lit on fire. So it's lighting all the matches in order. And it says,
attitudes are contagious.
Is yours worth catching? Yes.
So
I would cry and then look at that and go, I just have a bad attitude. I just need to cheer up.
Or you just needed to let it out.
Well, and I did. But alone.
It was the toxic positivity.
Alone, let it out. And then I could go back to being perfect, try to be perfect, because no one's perfect.
It's interesting that I got a memory flash into my head. So I remember my dad telling me once, your mom, if she's having a hard time, all she needs to do is get it out and then she's fine. But now I think that that's probably not a good thing because you just had to force yourself to be fine and you had to pretend like everything was fine, but really you probably weren't fine. No, there are probably things you didn't let go of, but you just pretended you did.
I would just cry and then I'd go, okay, I can move on now. Yeah. I get off your pity party.
Yeah.
And
Well, there is a good to that and being able to
Yeah,
release and move
yeah.
on. But I do feel like at some point there have probably been times where you needed more time for that emotion to get out and to really be expressed instead of just like a quick cry and then forcing yourself to move on.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So there was a story that you told in a previous interview that so many people resonated with. And so I was thinking we would go back to it because it has to do with being a mom, a perfect Mormon mom specifically, which is the stress of getting all of your children, you had 3, to church, looking perfect, and needing to present perfection when you walk in. But what's really going on behind the scenes?
Okay, I wake up early. I would put on Joseph in the coat of
Yeah,
dreams
she would.
to play through the house as it's playing, which I
Technicolor
still
Dreamcoat.
love that.
Great music.
I love it. Oh, I love it. And I would play that, and then I would start cooking breakfast and lunch because I'm preparing the meal to be cooking
Or when we come
for
home
when
from
we
church.
came home.
This 3-hour
3 hours.
session.
I would get everybody up. I'd make sure all the clothes were all pressed and ready to go. And then I would try to get you kids up. Well, you guys didn't want to get up. I mean, you didn't want to get up.
Especially for the 9 a.m. church.
Oh, yeah.
Noon
Oh,
was like
noon was
okay because you got breakfast and
Yeah.
you went full or whatever.
But then you didn't want to go at that time.
No, because then the day's over.
Yeah.
But 9 a.m. church, we would have to get there early and we never would. I remember Dad making us walk to the front row and it was so embarrassing.
Because we'd get
Because
there.
we'd be and we'd trot the whole family.
No, I wanted to sit on the back row.
I know. I didn't want to go to the front.
He'd go up to the front and then wave to us. Come on. And we're all like,
everyone knows that we're late and we're not good Mormons.
But I would just, let's be honest, and don't think let's all be honest here. When you're trying to get that many kids ready, it's not a pleasant experience.
And
it's
Sunday
hurry,
best.
eat your breakfast. Hurry, now put your dishes in the dishwasher. Now hurry, go get ready. Hurry, brush your teeth. Hurry, get in the car. Everybody, where's everybody? I mean, you've got this agitation that's just killing you. And you're like, okay, is everybody in the car? Seatbelts on, let's go. You get to church, and then all of a sudden you go, okay, everybody. Hi, how are you? Oh, it's so great to see you all. That was so fake. That was so fake. And I knew it was, but you felt if you didn't put on that.
You couldn't walk in with your stress.
Uh-uh.
You had to walk in like, here's my beautiful family in their bow ties and dresses. Because this is Sunday's best. You couldn't just take the kids in anything.
No.
Even the kids have to wear little ties and little
They have the
button-up
little
shirts
bow ties and
dress pants, and girls have to be in their little modest dresses.
Yeah. I think they've loosened up a little bit. I
With
don't
what?
know.
Are women allowed
Dress-wise?
to wear pants now?
No, I don't know.
I doubt that. I read somewhere that in some cases women can wear pants to church now. You guys will have to let us know in the comments because we've been out for a long time. But we are specifically talking about your experience.
If we went camping, like to Yellowstone, we'd still go to church, but we could wear pants.
Really?
Yeah, because you're camping.
How would we go to church if we were camping?
Oh, they had a church. Like if you were in a campground area, you would find the nearest church and you would go to church.
Well, that's silly.
I know. I wanted to just camp, but we took you guys. It was the guilt. If we were with people, if it was just us,
we wouldn't.
No. But if we were with other people that were all going, then we felt you had to go.
Or else you would have the appearance of a lazy Mormon family.
That you were not a good Mormon.
That you weren't being a good Mormon mom.
Yeah. Growing up as a kid, taking it back again, I remember when we'd go to Lake Powell, that was my excuse. Oh, I don't have to go to church because we're in Lake Powell.
Even when you're out and about on Sundays, I remember having guilt because you're not even supposed to play with your friends.
Or go to the store.
You cannot spend money on Sundays. Even if your family needs food, like you shouldn't be going to that store or else you're going to get called out. So I remember being guilty because your first husband, my brother's dad, had a nice big pool, and the brothers caught on that if they went to their dad's, they didn't have to go to church. And so sometimes they would invite me, and I was on the fence because I was like, I should be going to church, but pool. And I remember feeling guilty swimming with my family because you're not supposed to be having fun on Sundays. You're supposed to be reading your scriptures and being reverent, and even watching TV is like, yeah, it's probably fine, but let's watch Saturday's Warriors or
Yeah, yeah,
Joseph and the
yeah,
Technicolor
yeah.
Dreamcoat instead.
See, and that's where I felt guilty that I made your brothers go to church, because then they didn't want to be there on
But did you really make them? Like, when they were little, I guess, when
When
they
they were
didn't
little.
they couldn't be left home alone.
Yeah, when
They
they were,
would go
yeah.
because of safety.
But then they got to the age where they said, I'm going to go stay with my dad. We're going to our
Yeah.
dad's. And I let them. I mean, obviously that was their dad. So of
Yeah.
course I'm going to say, yeah, you can go with your dad. But they wanted to go there more often. But I feel like if I would have just said, this is your choice,
I thought you did do that.
when they got older, then I finally realized I'm losing them, period. They're
Then you
not,
just need to let them
then
be
I
free,
just
which
let
is a
them.
smart choice,
Yeah.
because a lot of moms double down, Mormon moms, and they're like, no, you will go. And then the kids really rebel because they're like, try and tell me again.
Or going on a mission. That was never forced.
Yeah.
I wanted them to. Oh,
Yeah,
really
let's
wanted
talk
them
about
to.
that. So
But then they didn't.
we frequently bring up the pressures on a mother because of their children doing or not doing something. So, for example, like, if your kids start drinking, it's a reflection on you as a Mormon mom, and you are in charge of their salvation to some extent. Like, if they stop doing something that makes them worthy, then you'll never see them again in heaven, or like you'll be in a different level of heaven than them. And then it's a reflection on you, especially in a highly populated Mormon area like Utah. So what was it like for you when my brothers chose to do sports, which you accepted and you wanted them to have
Yeah.
scholarships for sports in college, instead of going on a mission? Because I know you're probably torn
I
with the social
was.
pressure.
Yeah. I knew that I knew it was their choice. I mean, I knew that. But did I probably put guilt on them? Probably. I'm sure I did. I'm sure if you asked them, they'd probably say that I put I really wish they'd go. I'll pray that they go on a
Well,
mission.
you never ruled by an iron fist. You ruled with guilt.
Guilt.
You would.
I did.
You
I
didn't want
think
to
I
get
had
what
a
you
good
wanted.
guilt.
You would be like, "Oh, Shelise, it would just make me so happy if you would X, Y, or Z." And be like, "Okay, mom."
Yeah, I know I did that. That's so wrong. It's so bad.
No, but you
So-
learned it from the Mormon playbook.
It's
like how to get what you want by guilting
but
someone.
that's horrible. That's so horrible. And I feel, okay. I think any parent going back, if we're honest with ourselves, we would do things differently in a lot of ways. That would be mine, of trying to force you to do something in a way, like you say, with the guilt of,
Well, more of a manipulation than a force.
yeah, because I
But-
never said you will do this.
No, which I think was a
yeah.
better route, though. I think, yeah, there was a little emotional manipulation going on there, but it was all with love. Like, you never made me feel like I was a bad person if I didn't do something. It was just, I knew that it would make you happy,
Yeah,
and I wanted to make you happy and get your approval. But I would much rather have that than you yelling at me and shaming me and forcing me to do something, or making making me afraid of you if I didn't do something. I think that's a much
Yeah.
better route to go if you're going to do it.
yeah, okay, yeah, because I knew that there were some people that would force. I mean, you will.
Yeah.
You live in this house, you will.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't feel that was right.
I think if there's anything that you did do within our childhood, is you helped us gain independence. You gave us options, even though you tried to maybe look at this option, but you always encouraged independence, which a lot of Mormon parents did not do, at least from my perspective in my friend group. I always felt like you were the cool Mormon mom, because you at least encouraged me to have my own thoughts and opinions, and I always did. And you fostered that growth. Like, when I was deciding, should I go to BYU or Vegas, both options, you were probably like, don't do it. But you're like, whatever one you want to do, I'll support you, because you knew that I would do it either way.
Yeah.
So you also knew how to work with your kids and their own personalities and not shove them in a direction that they weren't going to be happy with.
Yeah. I would much rather have the boys not go on a mission and then go and and come home and feel shame.
Mhm.
To me, it's better to make the choice to not
I mean,
go
come home early and feel
because
shame.
of shame, or, get out there and go, I don't want to be here.
Yeah. Well, not only that, I think another hard thing about the Mormon Mission is they get kids when they get out of high school. In our time, it was more like 19, so
19
there
to
was a
21.
year
Oh,
before.
yeah.
So they get out of high school and there's a year to be a teenager and they get a taste of freedom, and then they usually, quote, mess up. Like, even just masturbating is considered messed up. But if
Now isn't it 18?
now
Is
it's
it
18. So in that time, my brothers went off to
Yeah,
college.
for a year.
Yeah, which would make sense. So it would be weird for them to stop their progress, go on a mission, and come back and not
Yeah.
have any full ride
Right,
scholarships, or
'cause
wouldn't make sense.
yeah, they had
So do you remember having conversations with people from the ward being disappointed that they didn't go on missions, or making you feel shame?
I felt, because like a lot, and I don't want to, I mean, because I don't know how much, your brothers want to go into all that, but in their choices of, as far as not going on a mission, I remember with one of them, all the friends were going on missions, and everyone went, and I remember people saying, "Oh, he's not going to go on a mission," so. Ooh, they were nervous about their kids with
Being friends with him still?
for fear that, is he gonna persuade?
Persuade them not to go.
And when I went to one of the kids' mission farewells, he stood up and he actually said, "It was because of him I'm going on a mission."
Oh,
He encouraged him and said, "If this is something you want to do and you feel you need to go," and I sat in there so proud of just, even
yeah.
though he chose not to go on a mission himself, I was so proud of him that I wanted everyone, it was like that boy that stood up there said to everyone, "He's the reason I'm going, because he gave me encouragement to do what I chose to do, not what his parents wanted him to do, not what anyone." He said, "What do you want to do?"
See, that speaks to your parenting,
Oh, I don't know that.
because he is replicating what you taught him to do, which is having choice and saying what makes you happy.
Yeah. So that just solidified my feelings of, gosh, I'm so glad that he had to do what he wanted to do, and
Mhm.
so it was good. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other things that you can think of that made it difficult to be a parent while you were in the Mormon church? Things that, I don't know, that were just a little bit more tricky. Like if it was a scheduling thing, or going to activities, or having callings and being a parent.
That was so hard. So hard, because you were expected to go to the meetings, to plan the meetings for the meetings.
Having a calling.
Having a
So,
calling.
for those who aren't familiar, it's basically a volunteer position bestowed upon you. You don't volunteer for it, but the church says, God told us that you're supposed to be the ward librarian, or you're supposed to lead a Sunday school class. And so it basically forces you to go every Sunday because people are relying on you to do the job that you've been given by the church, but it's not paid. It's a lot of time out of your day.
And it's Sunday and during the week. And when you've got 3 kids involved in sports or dance, I mean, trying to get all of you guys to all your practices and games and dance lessons, and I felt such guilt because the church is centered around the family. The family is supposed to come first,
Mhm.
but they can't if you have a calling, because the church is supposed to come first, but yet your family comes first. But yet I remember thinking, well, I want to go to a ball game, but I had to go to a meeting to teach other children. And yet I'm like, but my kids need me.
Mhm.
So the guilt that I felt when I would say, I'm going to a ball game, or I'm going,
Can't make it.
yeah, I'm not going to be there. Oh, you felt guilt that, well, you're supposed to be there. And so that to me was one of the hardest, because you had to learn to juggle of who's going to go to what games, and still go to your, activities.
Yeah. And I ended up going with you a lot of the times because I was the youngest. And so I would help you. I remember dressing up and setting up parties, like, doing all sorts of, I mean, it was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot, the girls were fun. I taught the young women's for those of you that don't know. And I was in the beehives, or
Which
the
is the younger
12,
12 to
and they were
13.
fun. And we did a lot of fun activities, and that it made it, you'd go camping and it would be the pirates were the bad, and then the paradise was the luau. And so you would kind of do everything themed.
Yeah.
Of course, that's how I do things, is themes. And so that was really fun, and trying to teach these young women things. But I feel bad looking back, because there were probably so many girls that were not living the life that they're supposed to be living.
According to the church.
And I wished I could have been more open and been more, there for them, to where they could come to me and say, I'm straying, or I'm struggling, and instead of me just, let's live, and being the perfect, everything's perfect.
Oh, I
And
see.
You know what I mean?
You wish you would have presented more nuance in the way that you spoke about things, so that people would feel comfortable coming to you. But I do feel like there were a lot of young women who came to you for help, even if it was just their home life.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
you being a helping hand for a lot of people who maybe their families didn't have enough money for things, and you would help and support. So I think you still were an emotional support, even if it wasn't religious based.
Yeah. I think everything was, though, centered around the religion. I remember, and I think we talked about this in a podcast when I was doing a lesson, and you have to follow the manual. Everyone around the world will follow
Follows
this
the
manual
exact
for the exact lesson and everything. And I remember wanting to talk more about Christ and his example. And I remember, no, you have to follow this about Joseph Smith. But I kept saying, but it doesn't flow with what I want to teach about Christ's example. I didn't feel that Joseph Smith fit into that role at that time, nor do I now, but oh my gosh. But that's the lesson. And that was really hard for me, because I wanted to get my point across about what a beautiful example Christ was.
I've looked at those lesson plans in doing research for this podcast, and they even say things like, for example, I looked up the lesson on polygamy. Like, what are they teaching kids these days about the truth about polygamy and Joseph Smith back in the day? And it even says, read this scripture, but don't read this one. And if they ask you a question about it, don't answer. Go skip to something else. Like, they're purposely trying to control the narrative around things, which does make it feel really manipulative as a teacher. If you're like, what do you mean I can't even? Because then you probably, as a teacher, go, well, what's wrong with this verse? And then you look into it yourself.
Yeah, and you're like,
can't wait to teach
"Why?"
this.
So yeah, that was hard to do that. But
So now we can really dive more into the regrets of things you would have done differently. Let's pretend in a different universe, you didn't grow up, however generation Mormon, and you didn't grow up in Utah, and you were just raising your family. What are things that you think you would have done differently?
I probably would have went to different religions all the time, different churches, just to experiment and to just see the good in all, and teach my children that there are good in all.
Mm-hmm.
Where the church, we are taught everyone's good and everyone's wonderful, and all the churches have some truth, but we had the truth. So therefore, you should just go to our church. And I did let you experiment as you got older and go to other churches if you chose to.
Only went to one.
In Oregon, I think in Oregon, yeah. But yeah, because in Utah,
there weren't any other options.
Yeah, we kind of
that I knew of.
But I don't even know if I would have put the pressure on for you to go to church. Looking back, I would do it differently. And so, I don't know how you'll do it as a parent. That's your choice as a parent. And hopefully you'll let your children, though, get a feel of everything, or not. If they choose not to go to church, doesn't mean that you don't have whoever you call God, or whatever God is, that you can't feel close to God. I feel close to God when I'm out walking and seeing nature, or sitting on a beach, or hiking in the mountains, or sitting with my feet in the stream. I feel close to the universe, the power of God, whatever God is to me. And everybody has their own different meaning. And that's for me, for my life. So I'd want you kids to be able to experience that. And if you want to go to church, go to church.
So you think it's more about the education, exposing them to the education of other
Oh,
religions
yeah.
instead of just this is the one?
Yeah, I wish I knew more about Buddhism, every Catholicism, I don't know a lot about it. With
Hinduism.
Yeah, there's so
Yeah.
many religions that have such beauty.
And that's what we wanted to talk about today too, is the difference of now that I've been out for over a decade and now I am raising my own kids, the struggles and or pros of things that come with just living instead of living
Yeah.
under so much pressure. So a lot of people do find comfort in Christianity, and if that makes them happy, that's great. I obviously on this channel don't want to be controlled or manipulated or coerced by any sort of organized group, so that's not necessarily for me. I think we have similar viewpoints now on God about this ultimate power that does exist, but I don't personify it as a person. I don't feel like it's someone looking down physically and saying, you get to heaven and you don't, and you're evil and you're not. All of those things just feel, they don't resonate with me, which is why I wouldn't call myself Christian. So with that comes a lot of pressure, especially because we moved to Texas. We're kind of in the Bible Belt now,
Yeah,
and we
you
just tried to
are.
go out for brunch, and things were closed, and I was like, "Wait, where do I live?"
Are there a lot of LDS churches out
There
here
are 0 where we live,
where you live?
within like a 30-mile radius, but there are further out. So yeah, it's just interesting when you live in a place that is more central around religion in some capacity. There are lots of different churches, not just one.
Yeah.
But being in a place where people will now look to me as the non-religious one and probably be like, well, why aren't you teaching your child about Jesus as the all-knowing God, all-powerful, whatever? And we've already had people in our lives who are more religious try and persuade us to raise our children, quote, right. Like you have to raise them right and teach them about the Bible and teach them that the Bible is the word of God and they need to follow all of these things. And we had open conversations and honest conversations about, well, why do you think our child has to know about the Bible in order to be a good person? Can't we just instill in them the
Mhm.
values that we all agree with, like being a kind and loving person, the values that they would promote as being Christ-like, right? Being loving, being caring, non-judgmental, accepting everybody, and doing good in the world. I feel like can all be taught without this being, real or not, who may or may not have
You're right.
existed, without all the baggage with that, as far as, well, if you're not, then there's this eternal hellfire waiting for you. Because I feel like children don't need to have that in the back of their minds. I would rather have my child be a good person just for the sake of being a good person than being a good person for the sake of either gaining an eternal reward or for fear of eternal damnation.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at, and I'm facing a little bit of that pressure, but trying to show people that you don't have to live by this story in order to raise a responsible human being who's a contributing part of
Yeah.
society.
And that's so true because to me, that fear of heaven and hell, if I was in the temple, I had fire insurance. That was my fire insurance.
You went to the Mormon temple because you felt like that was the way you would definitely get to heaven.
Yes, because
that's what they told me.
Yes, because I had such a fear of death. The only time I never feared death was when I was in the Mormon church 100%, because in my mind, if I died,
You're good.
I was not going to hell
Yeah.
and burn. And that is so, it makes my stomach churn now to think that that's what was being instilled on me, and I was instilling that on you as it's heaven or hell.
Well,
When
that's
it's
interesting.
not heaven or hell. It's just being a good person.
Where did you get the burning in hell situation? Because Mormon is outer darkness.
Well, that's hell.
Okay,
It's
so
the
you had
degrees,
you
the
had
celestial, the
idea.
terrestrial, the telestial, outer darkness.
Yeah,
To me, outer darkness, I always thought outer darkness was like, oh, where am I going?
floating in
What's going
space.
on? But hell is hell.
Because I don't remember learning hell within Mormonism. It was just outer darkness.
No, I did.
You did?
Yeah, it was heaven and hell.
Interesting.
You're going to go to hell if you don't live the gospel. And
Boo.
yeah, and maybe as time evolved, it became more of, for your generation, aw, sweetie,
Sorry, Boo.
In your generation, it's more, it was outer darkness, and you're left on that wandering path, going off the deep end.
I wonder if your generation had more influence with regular Christianity,
Oh, I'm
mainstream
sure. Yeah.
Christianity about heaven and hell.
Heaven and hell.
Because that's one thing I remember growing up, like, we're different because we don't have hell. Our God is more merciful. Our God will just let you float around in outer darkness where you can't even see your hand in front of your face.
No, we were told of the gnashing of the teeth. The
Oh,
gnashing of the teeth.
isn't that a biblical
And,
story?
and I remember that as a kid, and feeling that heaven and hell. So,
Mm,
but I don't think I ever really said to you kids, yeah, you're either going to heaven or hell.
no.
It was the different degrees. And I wanted you in the celestial. So when I was in the temple, I felt I was going to go to the celestial if I died. And now I feel like if I die, God knows where, I know where I'm going to be most comfortable. And I feel like my higher self knows me. And wherever I go, I feel like I will be happy there. I will be happy. And I will see my family, whether they are religious or not. I believe
Mhm.
I will see my family. I believe I will, whether it's in this life or another life. And who knows what's to come? We don't know. Nobody knows. So nobody knows if there's a heaven or a hell or 3 degrees or what it is. I just believe when we die, it will be love. There will
Mhm.
be love there.
I think it is interesting now going about life as a parent, going through this different milestones, the different holidays, and really considering what do I want to teach my child, because we just had Easter.
The resurrection or the Easter bunny?
Uh-huh.
Or how do you?
It's interesting because, like I mentioned, I don't really feel myself Christian. I feel like, and this is a big statement, don't crucify me for this. But
Oh, shoot.
bad reference.
Bad reference.
I feel like if Jesus did exist, he probably was an incredible person. Do I believe that he was God? I don't really believe in that story specifically. It doesn't make sense to me personally. And I feel like that's a story for another day. We could get into that, but that's not the point. Point is, do I want to teach my child this is a being that you need to idolize? Because I do feel like it's an idol worship in some capacity. Even though in the 10 Commandments it's don't have idols, I feel like God has made himself into an idol according to the Bible, or the way Christians do it now. Some Christians.
But isn't Superman a good?
Idol?
He's not and that's what I'm saying. Do we call him an idol? No, he's a superhero.
Uh-huh.
Well, Christ can be a superhero.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
you
that's
can,
a way to look at it.
you can look at all these people that have done good. Mother Teresa. I mean, that's a beautiful superhero. I mean, I feel like you have to look at people differently, whether you put them as a god or not. That's your own choice of how
Yeah.
you choose to do that. I look at Christ as being just such a wonderful influence of love. What better person showed love than Christ?
Mhm.
Because he loved the sinners.
Well, and that's what I mean, where I feel like you can take all of the positive and the good examples, and I like that of they're just a superhero to a child, but not something that you have to bow down to, because I feel like giving away your power to this story is taking away your actual agency or your power.
Yeah.
Like if and that's just, again, this is all my opinion, and everyone can believe and practice however they want. But as far as me as a parent now, I feel like teaching my child that they're in control of their life, and yes, we can make wishes to the universe, or we can pray in our own way, and we can write things down, and we can all together as a family like have our own version of family prayer, which would be, thank you so much for this, this, and this, and these are the things that I hope can happen one day. But also teaching them that they're in charge of making it happen.
Yeah.
The power is in their hands. And if they make a mistake, that doesn't mean that I'm going to stop loving them. It doesn't mean that this being is going to stop loving them. And it doesn't mean that if they were to pass away, that they're in big trouble and I'm never going to see them again. Just giving them that unconditional love, which I know some Christians practice too. I know there are many flavors of Christianity out there. But as far as what I want to teach my child, it's that the power is within them. They can have gratitude. They can want and wish for things, and it doesn't have to be based on their worth.
Yeah.
Like they are always going to be worthy in my eyes of my love
Mm-hmm.
and of our family's love, Jonathan's love. Nothing they do will make them unworthy of that.
Well,
And they're always accepted.
yeah, and it doesn't stop them from praying. If they choose to pray, I pray sometimes to where I'm so thankful for where I'm at in this life and where I've been born, to where I have such luxuries in life that if I was born in another country, I'm grateful for that. And I believe that if I'm praying for somebody that's had a natural disaster and I'm praying for them, I believe that the energy that we're all made of, that we all came from the same energy, if I pray for them, they're going to feel that prayer.
Yeah. It's the
feel
intention of it.
that it's going to go around and they'll feel my love.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I feel like with children, if they feel that they want to pray to whatever, it's for them to decide. But like you say, if something were to happen to them, like the fear of me dying when I wasn't living
Perfectly.
that's a horrible feeling, to
Yeah.
fear death instead of fearing what's on the other side.
Yeah.
We don't know what's on the other side, but I
Mhm.
feel like it's good. I feel like it's good. And why are we fearing that? I was fearing it because I was taught that if you're not living the gospel to 100%, and then I started thinking about it. What did I have to do to live that? I had to go to every meeting that they told me to go to. Not just another church, that church. I had to pay a certain amount of money, whether I had it or not.
10%.
Yeah, and you pay it. You will give up things in order to pay it. And I had to attend the temple so much. I had to live the word of wisdom to what they told me I had to live it.
Mm-hmm.
All these things.
Wear your garments.
And yes, and wear my garments.
Special underwear.
Yeah. Now, who benefits from that?
The church.
The church. How do they benefit? Financially.
Yeah.
It all comes down to if all you said to somebody, and maybe I'm going too extreme, but if I were to say, if I was a church member and I'd say, the only thing you need to do is go to the temple. Okay, well, to go to the temple, you have to do
all the things you mentioned
of those things
in order to get your swipe card to get in, because not any Mormon can just go into a temple. We're not talking about the churches on every corner. We're talking about the huge castle buildings.
Which is sad. Why can't everybody enjoy those? Why can't everyone feel the love in the temples? But so the only way to do that is for them to financially gain, and that's what they're gaining.
And you have to buy temple clothes from them.
Yeah, they're not giving. What are they giving back to me?
All the food's not free in the temple. No. You got to pay for that.
And I'm not asking for anything from the church, but I'm just saying, what if we look at who benefits from all of us that go to the temple? Not just come to the church, just come to church when you feel like coming. No, because they don't benefit that way. They're paying for the electricity of the building. They're paying for, but who's really paying for it? The people that go to the temple, because they are living the gospel to the fullest. So they're paying for all those churches and all those temples and all the everything that the church has. We as the members had paid for that.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to have said, hey, I really need some help here. I need a new roof. But no, pay your tithing and
you'll be blessed.
Yeah. Whether you had the roof or not,
mm-hmm. Yeah. So that is just a lot of arbitrary.
Man, I'm sorry. That went
Hey, I get it. Arbitrary rules that benefit someone other than us. So yeah, raising a child in a way that gives them the education of these are all the different religions out there. And if you want to explore them when you're a little bit older, I would love for you to explore them yourself, giving them the plot points of each thing. Like some people believe in Jesus as God, some people believe in Buddha, some people, giving them all the different options and saying, this is what some people believe is right. Now you have to decide for yourself what resonates with you. And because I'm not going to force them to be atheist either. I mean, if they came to me and asked to be Mormon, I might have some words, but
You would let them choose.
but ultimately it's going to be their choice. And I
Yeah.
think that's just it wraps everything up in a bow, this conversation. Actual freedom of choice, non-coercive choice, because even when you're in the Mormon church, you think you're making all your decisions yourself, but they are coerced decisions. That is the illusion of choice. If you don't do those things, if you don't choose the right things, you will feel guilty, shamed, and or punished for it.
Not necessarily the right things. If you do not choose what we tell you is the right things.
Yeah.
So therefore you believe that has to be right because they're saying, but if you disagree with it, if you choose not to worship Joseph Smith, oh no, you will, you can't go against that.
Yeah.
Joseph is the prophet and you're supposed to put him on the same pedestal as you would God.
Well, Joseph Smith himself said that I am second to Jesus.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts now that the church is being seriously diluted? So when you were raising me, you had the full sleeve garment to here. It was like mid-arm. You had all the way to your knees.
No, down to the
longer.
Oh yeah,
I thought you had some that came to your knees.
Oh no. Oh, it did. But they had the long ones too.
Okay.
And then you could wear the short. If you were wearing shorts, but they had to be to the knee.
Yeah.
They're not to the knee now.
No. Do you know they have slips now?
No.
Yeah. You don't even have, for dresses, you don't even have to wear the shorts. They have slips.
Those things just crawl.
So there are some influencers right now, Mormon influencers, who are like, let's try on our new wardrobe now that the garments have changed, because now they're allowing tank tops.
So
you can show your shoulders, which was no.
You don't show
before.
your shoulders because that's seducing. That's showing. That's
So huge changes. Now, am I mad about them? No, I think it's great that they're progressing and they are loosening up to some capacity. I think it's because they're just bleeding numbers. Like people are leaving in huge groups right now.
3 hours to
3-hour church to 2-hour church.
Yeah.
So something that's being really pushed right now is personal revelation, not by the church, but by its members. So I want to get your opinion because now it's, well, we do what feels right for us. And if that means breaking X, Y, or Z rule, we're fine with it because we personally asked God and God we got the feeling that it was fine. So this is how we're going to live. Now, let me just say for the record, I think it's great for families to not put themselves under so much pressure.
Yeah.
However, growing up as a Mormon, that wasn't an option. It was, no, we tell you how to live. Mm-hmm. And then you can pray about it or not. But if you get the answer that's opposite to what we're telling you, our direction, you need to go back and pray again. So as a parent who grew up in the very strict Mormon church, seeing how people are able to parent now, what does that do to your feels?
I would have probably lived the church.
You would have done all the rules anyway?
No, not all the rules. But I would have lived differently had I felt I had a voice. I didn't have a voice to say, personal revelation told me I'm okay to not wear my garments today. When I went to Hawaii with family.
Extended family,
I stayed because it was all the adults. And we were going to the temple over there.
You went to the temple on vacation?
No, I didn't because I knew I couldn't.
You didn't have a temple recommend?
But I didn't want anyone to know I wasn't wearing my garments, so I just stayed in my swimsuit the whole time.
Loopholes.
Every day I would get up and put my swimsuit on. Oh, we're at the beach. We're going to go to the beach today, I'm sure. I'm sure we're going to the beach. We went to a coffee place where they made the famous coffee in Hawaii. It was so good. And I'm going to have some. And the shame. You'd get the looks like, you're having coffee?
You couldn't just say, my personal revelation said that my gut health needs this coffee.
Wouldn't that have been cool? Wouldn't that have been cool to be able to say, I believe that this is right. I didn't know they're going with that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not the church that's promoting personal revelation. It's the members who are sick of
Oh,
living.
wow.
It's the millennial parents, my age,
Go get them.
who were like,
that's
yeah, we're not doing that, but we still believe in Mormonism, but we're just going to pretend like this isn't a rule. And
But doesn't God not change? Doesn't
No.
the church say that God is never changing?
Yeah,
But things are changing
things are changing
big
quick.
time. So, because the church we were always told, my generation, that God will never waver. God is God. God's rules are God's rules.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Well, which is why we have polygamist offshoots of the church,
Yeah.
because they're like, Joseph Smith literally said this will always be a law.
and now, yeah. So, wow.
It feels, I bet you, if you went to a Mormon church today and listened to the lessons, have you been with any of
No.
your Mormon people,
No.
friends? I bet it would feel like a very different church.
Different.
But that's not to say, again, that the church hierarchy is going, oh, you know what, we should let people have personal revelation. They're still doubling down on some of their talks and some
Yeah.
of their lessons, but it's the members who are going, no, I'm not going to do that, and being okay with it. That's what is crazy to me,
Wow.
is having the audacity to be like, yeah,
I'm okay with it.
I'm just not going to do it, and I'm not going to feel guilty about it, which I think is great.
I do too.
But I could never.
Mm-mm. I couldn't either. There's no
The
way.
closest I got to that little attitude, because I did at one point when I was a teen and living in Vegas, I mean, come on, was I'm going to wear shorts and I'm okay with it because I'm still a virgin. I've still never drank alcohol. I've still never smoked weed. Like I'm doing everything else. So shorts are fine.
Yeah.
But as far as the bigger things, like being okay with masturbation, like that's a big sin in
Yeah,
Mormonism.
yeah.
And a lot of people are like, yeah, we're fine with it.
Mhm.
Which again, good for you.
Uh-huh.
I'm
Yeah.
happy you masturbate. Here's a vibrator. Like, let me step up your game. Like, it's just so interesting, this new wave of parenting within the mainstream Mormon church and how it's becoming more progressive. But I think, and that's where you have to wonder, is the church going to continue to double down, or are they going to let people be progressive because they
They're
want
going to
their
have
money?
to. They're going to have to. They have to. Well, look what they're doing to change with just the garments itself.
Yeah,
People
making
were-
changes. They say it's
yeah.
because of hot climates, but anyone can get them.
Oh,
Anyone can get the tank tops,
n-
as
it-
far as I'm aware.
it is not. Oh, they used to make missionaries go to the
Right.
Oh,
What was the,
and wear the garments,
Do you
and they're
remember
dying of
what was
heat.
the Mormon movie where the missionaries went to, it was like a Polynesian country or something, and his feet got eaten by things, and he had to put them up in the sun. Guys, help me out in the
Oh,
comments.
I don't know
It
what
was
it
a
was.
Mormon missionary movie, and he's just like pouring sweat because he's in an actual suit. Because you had to wear your coat
Mhm.
too, not just
Yeah.
the shirt. It was like the suit coat,
And then
and
they
all
went
these
to the
men
white
are
shirt.
in,
Yeah.
in like, what are they called? Not tongas.
Oh,
Is that what they're called?
yeah.
Togas.
Is
No,
it?
but the ones
No.
that are
Uh-huh.
dresses. Oh,
Ah.
guys, I'm sorry. I don't remember the right word for it. But anyways, now they're letting missionaries wear those.
They
I
are.
think
I'll be.
in
I
certain
didn't know
countries.
that. I didn't know that. But oh no, but back then missionaries had to wear a tie, the shirt, the white shirt, and it didn't matter where they went.
Yeah.
But now they're letting. That's interesting.
Because it was righteous suffering. In that movie, it was very
was-
clear this missionary is suffering, but because of his suffering, he would get people to convert. And so the message to me that I got as a kid was, you suffer and you get blessings. It
from
wasn't
suffering.
you make it work in your head and God will be happy with you. Like,
Do you know how hard it was?
taught you to suffer.
Yeah, sitting at a ball game. Sitting at a
Oh,
ball
with
game
garments
with I had
in St. George.
110 degrees.
Yeah, it's an extra layer.
Dying of heat.
Mhm.
And how I wished I could have wore a tank top.
Oh, here's another one.
What?
You can wear panties under now.
What?
You can wear underwear under your garments. And you can wear your bra under your top, under your t-shirt.
Oh, we used to have to wear a bra on top of the garments. Yeah, we had to wear it on
You
top.
can wear underwear now.
Wow.
I don't know if thongs are permitted. But yeah,
don't know.
I heard that you can
Interesting.
actually, and that's the funny thing. Some women are saying, well, during my period, I always wear underwear because I just wasn't going to deal with it. Some people, they're just fed up. People are just like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Wow.
And they
that
feel
is
okay
so
with it.
interesting.
Yeah.
I'm just excited that you're going to raise my grandchildren to be who they choose to be.
And I'm excited that you are the way you are now so that you're not trying to get them to go to church.
I'm not putting pressure. Or when they come and stay
Yeah.
with me, we're going to church whether you
'Cause
want to or not.
they wouldn't stay with you if that
Yeah,
was the
yeah.
case.
And that's one thing I feel as a grandparent, I have to honor what my children want
And
for
that's
their children.
yeah, that's great
You
that you
have to
have that
You have to do
perspective.
that
Yeah.
because I'm not the parent.
And so here's something that could have also happened that you're not doing, which is you feel regret for how you raised us, and now you're trying to make up with it by raising my child in your new way rather than just letting me raise my child differently.
Oh, yeah.
Which, I feel like sometimes parents can be like, well, I messed up, so now let me insert myself and try to raise their child
Yeah, yeah.
and redeem myself for something that I did wrong. So, and you don't do that.
No, I would respect what you want. It's the same thing as respect when you have grandparents have the kids over, and if the parents don't want them to have all the sugar,
Yeah.
you got to respect that.
Yeah.
You have to respect what the parents want.
Mhm.
I mean, we make that joke, I'm going to feed them tons of sugar and then send them home. But you have to really respect that. And grandparents have to take a step back.
Yeah.
And listen to the parents and what they choose and how
'Cause
you
now
want
it's
to
my
raise your kids.
turn.
Now it's your turn to make mistakes or not.
It's true.
And you will make mistakes.
Yep.
We all do.
Mhm.
We all do. And that's
Yeah.
okay.
So I think that's a good place to be. Just being able to make my own choices, knowing that you'll support me in my choices because it's my turn to go around the merry-go-round and make mistakes and do things differently, and all of that's good. So we're about to have 2 to make mistakes with.
I know.
2 little, and it's a girl.
Oh, yeah, it's the girl. Okay, I have something. Okay,
You
I
have
have
something.
something to give her.
You have
Okay,
something.
yeah.
What is it?
She didn't know about this. It's so fun. Okay, this is just a little early Mother's Day
Wrapped it and
gift.
everything.
It's just a
Oh,
little.
thanks, Mom.
You're welcome.
What is it? Okay. Wait, open it. Oh, this way.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh. It's so cute. It's a mug. What does it say? Hold on. What does it say? Help me pull that off.
Okay. Whoops. Oh.
Oh, they're real good. There
Yeah.
we go. To my daughter, the only thing better than being your mother is watching you be a mom. Happy Mother's Day. Oh, and it says Shelise and Mama Bear.
And doesn't it look like us?
It does. Thanks, Mom. Oh,
I thought that was
so
fun.
sweet. Well, I had a great example of how to be a good mom, and I
Oh.
still get ideas watching you with Rhea. I'm like, oh, that's a fun game. You think
Oh.
of silly things that I just don't think of.
I do crazy things.
Well,
Silly.
because we didn't mention this in part of your story, is you did stay in childcare to some capacity so that you could be technically a stay-at-home mom while still working.
Had the preschool.
You made a preschool
Uh-huh.
so you could stay home with me. You were a librarian. You were a substitute teacher. You were, what else?
And then I moved. Well, I stayed and did our business in doing construction
Construction.
and ran the business from home so that
Yeah.
I could be there when you kids got home.
You're a super mom.
But
You're
you know
my
what?
superhero.
Well,
It's true.
where's my cape?
We'll get to it. Your Mother's Day.
No, that's funny. No, I'm so excited for you to be a mom.
Oh, thanks,
I mean,
Mom.
to be a mother. You're a mom, and now you're going to be a mother of more children. So,
Yeah.
and who knows how many more are to come?
Max 3.
3.
That's all you get.
Okay. Oh, dang it.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a good conversation. We covered a lot of different bases as far as I think, again, it all just wraps into having freedom of choice. So allowing your kids true choice without guilt or coercion or manipulation, just allowing them to be who they want to be within the guidelines that you can set, within healthy boundaries of this is how you be a good person, and this is how you contribute to society. This is how you help others. I think all of that is so important and you can teach a healthy dose of shame if they do something wrong, but not like shame on you. If you died right now, you would be burning in flames. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
There's of course different things that you can teach, different values. Oh yeah, one of them I wanted to say was like accountability is still a real thing. I can teach her to be accountable for her actions without making her sit in a room with a grown man alone talking about her sins and confessing,
Oh, yeah.
There's so many things that I just want to do differently. And I don't really have that example specifically because we had the church as the authoritarian figure. So I'm going to kind of trial and error, see how it goes, but I'm excited for it. I think I'm well prepared. I think I'm at a really great age to have children for myself. I feel like I needed those long years. And that's one thing you always did tell me. Don't get married yet.
Yeah.
I would
Take
meet
your
someone
time.
and she'd be like, Shelise, don't get married yet. Just wait till you're like mid-20s. Like, don't get
Just
married
wait,
yet.
wait.
Because I found someone at 18, you're like, oh, don't do it. Because that is one thing that you never pushed on me was marriage, and you never made me feel like I had to get married. You were like, go to college, go do the things you want to do. And I'm so glad that I did. So I want to, in that way, follow your example and give Rhea that, and the next one too, that advice as far as go find who you are, go live, go explore, go be a young 20-year-old and see what you like and see what you want to do with your life. And then if that means kids later down the road, or if it means kids sooner, if that's
Or
something
no,
she
or
wants,
not kids.
or no kids,
Or maybe
that's
no kids.
totally fine.
Yeah, it's what their choice is. One thing, too, I wanted to say, it's funny to watch you being here and seeing Rhea she's already has a voice.
Oh yeah.
And yet she doesn't speak a lot. She can say ball or...
Oh, you mean she doesn't know words?
No, she knows sign language.
Yeah.
And to see her make the sign of, of
this is what I want. And
this is what I want. It's
right
more, or
yeah.
or
her more is
her
this.
more is this.
Time.
It's time out. She'll go more, or all done. When she's all done, she's done, and she doesn't even speak it. She just does the sign language or love.
Yeah.
She just, she just loves.
Yeah.
And yet you're letting her have a voice at such an early age. She doesn't scream because she's just showing what she wants.
Mm-hmm.
And yet she doesn't go in excess of it. It's okay, we're done with this, let's move on to something else. And she does. And
we just want to give her the ability to communicate.
Yeah.
Tell us what she needs. And because she has opinions too,
Yeah.
even if I have to say, no, we're not doing this, at least giving her the ability to say what she wants and have that communication is so important to me.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. She's funny. She's a funny little one.
She is.
Well, thanks for coming back on, Mom.
Well, thanks for
I kind of
having
forced
me.
you to, but I was
I
like,
know
it's
she
perfect.
did.
I was like, we can do a Mother's Day episode. We can announce the pregnancy. We can talk about motherhood. And this is a topic I've been thinking about a lot. And if you guys listening want more of this, want more perspectives of this, I've been thinking about doing a panel and having on, like we did, multiple women from different groups and really hearing each experience from each different group and how it's different, how it's the same. So if this is a topic you'd like to see covered in a panel, let us know in the comments. And do you have any final thoughts? Wait, you need your Linda Listen.
No, I don't think I have a Linda Listen.
I didn't tell her to prepare one.
I guess, oh man, Linda Listen would just be, let your children be them. Let them be them. They're all different. All you kids are different.
Mm-hmm.
And you will find that out. Rhea will be different, and your new one she'll be different too.
Yeah.
Let them be them.
Any final thoughts?
Thank you all for having to tolerate me again.
Oh my gosh, everyone loves you, Mom. I found my I went to Mom first. I'm Lois now. She goes to Grandma.
Hi, sweetheart.
There's our little one. Hi, Angel.
Hi, say
Are
hi.
you waving?
Can you wave to everyone? Can you wave?
So, guys, thank you for joining us. Leave those words of encouragement for Mom in the comments. Yay! And let us know your thoughts if you were a mom or a parent growing up in a high control group. And definitely check out Mom's previous interviews and come with us to Mexico at the end of the year. What are you doing? If you like this video, I'll link 2 more down here below. She almost grabbed the cup. That was close. She knows what she wants. Okay. Here, come here. Say love you.
Love you. Oh.
Next time, follow your highest excitement, be conscious, and be well.